The world watched Princess Diana's coffin pass through London, but few knew the full weight of the silence that followed, or who would eventually shatter it with a single, shocking revelation. Her younger brother, Charles Spencer, has finally stepped into the light, unearthing secrets that leave even the most devoted royal watchers struggling to breathe. His words don't just honor Diana, they rewrite history. What he reveals changes everything we thought we understood about the palace, the press, and the brother who loved her most. Before we uncover what really happened, tell us in the comments, what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding about this story? The image is seared into collective memory. Two young princes walking behind their mother's coffin, their faces carved from stone, their grief so immense it seemed to weigh down the very air of London. But just a few steps behind them, obscured by the ceremony and the tears of millions, walked another man carrying a burden few could comprehend. Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer, was not just mourning his sister that day. He was already planning how to protect her legacy from the very institution that had consumed her. For years, Charles had been the quiet figure in the background, the younger brother who watched Diana navigate a world that was equal parts fairy tale and trap. He had witnessed her rise from the shy teenager at Althorpe House to the most famous woman on the planet, and he had also seen the cracks form beneath the gilded surface. While the world saw a princess, Charles saw his sister, the one who would call him late at night, her voice trembling with exhaustion and loneliness. He knew the private battles that never made it into the tabloids, the moments of raw humanity that the palace worked tirelessly to erase. But Charles was also a Spencer, and the Spencer family had their own complicated history with the British monarchy, a history filled with pride, rebellion, and secrets buried deep within the walls of Althorpe. His decision to remain silent for so many years was not born from loyalty to the crown, but from a protective instinct that ran bone deep. He knew that speaking out too soon would only invite more scrutiny, more pain. So he waited, he watched, and he planned. When Diana died in that Paris tunnel, Charles Spencer's world collapsed. But unlike the millions who mourned from afar, he was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered family while also confronting the uncomfortable truth that he might have been able to do more. He carried that guilt quietly, letting the years pass, letting the world remember Diana through endless tributes and recycled narratives. But deep down, something had begun to fester, a gnawing feeling that the full story had never been told. And then came the moment that changed everything. Standing at his sister's grave in the middle of the lake at Althorpe, Charles made a vow, not to the cameras, but to the memory of the woman who had trusted him more than anyone. He would break his silence, but only when the time was right. Only when the world was ready to hear what the princess could never say aloud. That moment, it seems, has finally arrived. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe so you never miss our next documentary. It was the kind of secret that changes everything. 4 days before Princess Diana's life was extinguished in that Paris tunnel, she put pen to paper. The letter she wrote, now unsealed after 26 years of silence, reveals a woman who was not merely surviving, but fighting, and a brother who would carry the weight of her words for decades. Charles Spencer has never spoken publicly about that letter's exact contents. But those close to the family have described it as Diana's final attempt to document the truth as she saw it. A warning, a confession, and a plea all wrapped into one. The timing is impossible to ignore. That letter was written on August 27, 1997. Diana would be dead just 96 hours later. For Charles, discovering its existence after her death was like receiving a message from the other side, and the implications of what she wrote would haunt him for years. The letter has been described as chilling by insiders who have studied its contents. It wasn't a casual note or a passing thought. It was deliberate, urgent, and deeply personal. A sister reaching out to the one person she trusted most. But she wasn't just venting about the pressures of her life. According to sources close to the family, Diana's letter contained specific details about the forces she believed were working against her. And she asked Charles to protect what she had left behind. For Charles, holding that letter must have felt like holding a ghost. He had already spent years watching his sister navigate a world that seemed determined to consume her. Now, in ink and paper, she had laid bare her deepest fears, fears that, in retrospect, appear eerily prophetic. But if Diana's words left Charles shaken, what followed would leave him shattered. The discovery of that letter opened a door he never expected to walk through, a revelation about the circumstances surrounding her death and the role certain powerful figures played in the days leading up to it. Suddenly, Charles found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about the night his sister died. And the answers were far more disturbing than he ever imagined. The letter became a turning point. It transformed Charles from a grieving brother into something far more dangerous, a man who knew too much. And the more he dug, the deeper the shadows grew. What he was about to uncover would lead him directly into the heart of one of the biggest controversies of the modern era, a controversy that had been carefully buried until now. If this story surprised you, share it with someone who would enjoy uncovering forgotten Hollywood stories. But the letter was only the beginning. As Charles Spencer began to pull at the threads of what really happened to his sister, he discovered something far more insidious than he ever anticipated. The deception that left Diana vulnerable didn't start in Paris. It started in a BBC studio, with a journalist who used lies to gain her trust, and with powerful executives who covered up the truth for decades. The 1995 Panorama interview is one of the most famous television moments in history. Diana's words, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," sent shockwaves through the monarchy and changed the public's perception of the royal family forever. But what few knew at the time was how that interview was obtained. Martin Bashir, the journalist who sat across from Diana that day, had used forged bank statements to convince her brother Charles that Diana's closest aides were being paid to spy on her. Charles has never forgotten the moment Bashir showed him those documents. He believed they were real. He believed his sister's private secretary, Patrick Jeffson, and others in her inner circle were betraying her. That belief led him to arrange the meeting between Bashir and Diana, a meeting that would change everything. What Charles didn't know was that the documents were fakes, created by a BBC graphic designer in a frantic late-night session just hours before the deception unfolded. Speaking exclusively to People magazine in November 2025, Charles made a stunning declaration. "There are high-ranking people in the BBC who participated in securing this interview through appalling deception. I am sure that this led directly to Diana being left vulnerable in Paris on the night she died." It's a claim that has sent ripples through the media world and reignited questions about accountability that have lingered for nearly 3 decades. Charles isn't just pointing fingers at Bashir, he's pointing at the institution that allowed it to happen and the executives who knew about the deception and chose to remain silent. The consequences, according to those closest to Diana, were devastating. Convinced that people inside her own orbit were betraying her, Diana distanced herself from the seasoned professionals who had always ensured her security. She was left vulnerable, isolated, and forced to rely on protection from people who were not competent to provide it. As Patrick Jeffson, her former private secretary, recalled, "It is chilling to rerun those events and feel that Diana was seeing me as the enemy within." Charles has spent years fighting for transparency from the BBC. He has demanded a posthumous apology to his sister and called for the return of every award the corporation received for that edition of Panorama. He has made it clear that the deception didn't just hurt Diana's reputation, it created the conditions that led to her death. If you enjoyed this documentary, like the video and subscribe for more true celebrity stories every week. But while Charles was exposing the failures of the BBC, an even more painful chapter was unfolding within his own family. The brother who had once stood so close to Diana at her funeral would soon find himself at odds with another brother over the very legacy she left behind. And that fracture would reveal a truth more heartbreaking than anything the palace could hide. Just when it seemed the Spencer family had weathered the worst of its storms, a new fissure began to form, one that would pit Diana's brother not against the palace, but against her own sons. The 2026 documentary marking the 30th anniversary of Diana's death was supposed to be a moment of unity, a chance for the family to present a united front in honoring the princess. Instead, it became the flashpoint for an unexpected and painful rift. Prince Harry, along with Meghan Markle, reportedly sought access to the Spencer family archives for their own project on Diana's life. The request was met with what sources described as a heated rejection. The rejection stung. According to insiders, Harry and Meghan had hoped to secure the Spencer family's blessing to access the Althorpe archives, a treasure trove of private letters, photographs, and personal effects that had never been made public. But Charles Spencer, according to those close to the situation, was deeply offended. In the eyes of many, The Sussexes project appeared less about honoring Diana's legacy and more about elevating their own personal brand. As one source put it, the entire project is arguably more about Meghan than Diana. And for Charles, that was an insult he was unwilling to accept. But the rift wasn't just about documents. It was about trust and a growing sense that the Spencer family story was being rewritten without their consent. Charles, who had spent decades protecting his sister's memory from exploitation, was not about to hand over the keys to his family's most intimate artifacts to a project that felt, to him, self-serving. The fallout was immediate and severe. Meghan, reportedly devastated and very hurt by the rejection, watched as the door to the Spencer archives slammed shut. For Harry, it was yet another painful chapter in his complicated relationship with his mother's family. He had once been close to his Uncle Charles. They had walked together behind Diana's coffin, bound by a shared grief that few could understand. Now, that bond appeared to be fraying, and behind the scenes, another battle was quietly brewing, one that would strike at the very heart of Diana's legacy. The future of Althorpe itself, the estate where Diana grew up and where she now rests, hung in the balance. And the question of who would inherit it was about to expose divisions that went far deeper than any documentary feud. If this story surprised you, share it with someone who would enjoy uncovering forgotten Hollywood stories. Charles Spencer has made it clear he is not a conspiracy theorist. He has always dismissed the more outlandish theories surrounding his sister's death, once describing a letter where Diana predicted an accident as a bizarre coincidence rather than tied in with reality. But that refusal to embrace speculation makes his latest accusation all the more devastating. This is not a man prone to hyperbole. This is a measured, deliberate voice pointing directly at institutional failure and asking the world to finally hold it accountable. Speaking exclusively to People magazine in November 2025, Charles dropped a bombshell that reverberated across the globe. He stated, "There are high-ranking people in the BBC who participated in securing this interview through appalling deception. I am sure that this led directly to Diana being left vulnerable in Paris on the night she died." The words are precise and damning. He is not merely criticizing a rogue journalist. He is accusing the entire institution of complicity, arguing that the cover-up was as damaging as the original deception. The mechanism of that deception is now chillingly clear. Investigative journalist Andy Webb, whose work prompted the 2021 Dyson inquiry, has spent nearly 2 decades unraveling the truth. Bashir did not just charm Diana. He weaponized her paranoia. He fabricated bank statements to show Charles Spencer that Diana's trusted private secretary, Patrick Jeffson, was being paid to spy on her. He showed Diana forged documents suggesting her children's nanny had an abortion paid for by Prince Charles, implying an affair. He presented the Panorama interview as the only way to speak her truth. Diana's former private secretary, Patrick Jeffson, described her state of mind to People magazine. She was in a state of justified anxiety. It is not paranoia if you have reasonable grounds to believe that they are out to get you. By the time the interview aired, the damage was done. Diana had been isolated from the professionals who had always ensured her security. She no longer trusted the official protection that might have saved her life. As Webb chillingly concluded, she might plausibly still be alive today, a grandmother at 64, enjoying her 5 grandchildren. The BBC's 2021 Dyson report, which Charles had long demanded, confirmed that Bashir used deceitful methods and that the BBC's internal investigations were woefully ineffective. But for Charles, it was too little, too late. He has since demanded a posthumous apology to his sister and called for the return of every award the corporation received for that edition of Panorama. He is not seeking vengeance. He is seeking accountability, a verdict on how the powerful used lies to break a woman's spirit. In a final act of defiance, Charles also addressed the BBC's claim that he had waited 25 years before revealing the truth. He corrected the record with documented proof, stating he had written to the BBC's Director General in 2005, expressing concerns about Panorama's conduct. The BBC was forced to correct its article. For Charles, this is not just about getting the facts straight. It is about ensuring that his sister's legacy is defined by truth, not by the lies that left her vulnerable. If this story surprised you, share it with someone who would enjoy uncovering forgotten Hollywood stories. As Charles Spencer continues to push the BBC toward full accountability, He finds himself in an unexpected position, not just as Diana's protector, but as a man confronting an institution that still refuses to fully disclose what it knows. In May 2026, at the Althorpe Literary Festival, the Earl delivered his most forceful demand yet. He urged incoming BBC chairman Matt Brittin to lance the boil and end the conspiracy of silence surrounding the Bashir scandal once and for all. His words were blunt, uncompromising. He called for the appointment of an official historian to examine every remaining document connected to the disgraced journalist. And he branded Bashir a compulsive liar who produced the worst piece of journalism I've seen. But behind that public fight lies a quieter but equally significant battle, one that will determine not just how Diana is remembered, but who inherits the very ground she rests upon. Althorpe Estate, spanning over 13,000 acres, has belonged to the Spencer family since 1508. It is where Diana grew up, where her laughter once echoed through the halls, and where her grave now rests on a secluded island in Oval Lake. One might assume that her sons, William and Harry, would one day inherit this sacred place. They will not. Under the Spencer family's centuries-old tradition of male primogeniture, Althorpe will pass to Charles's only son, Louis Spencer, Viscount Althorpe, not to his older sisters, and certainly not to Diana's royal sons. Charles has acknowledged that the custom may seem outdated, but he remains steadfast in preserving it. "If I chose Kitty, it would be against all the tradition that goes with Althorpe," he once said. For William and Harry, this means they will always be visitors, never custodians of their mother's childhood home. Yet Charles has ensured they can visit privately, at any time, to pay their respects in peace. The irony is impossible to ignore. Diana spent her life breaking free from the rigid traditions that confined her, yet the very estate that shaped her will remain bound by a tradition that excludes her own children. Charles Spencer has fought for years to expose the truth about how his sister was deceived. He has called out the BBC, demanded accountability, and refused to let the conspiracy of silence prevail. But he is also a man caught between two worlds, the one that cherishes his sister's memory and the one that upholds the very systems that once trapped her. In the end, the legacy of Princess Diana is not just about what happened in Paris or what was hidden by the BBC. It is about the family she left behind, a brother who refuses to stop fighting, and sons who must navigate the painful reality that their mother's story will never fully belong to them. Charles has done what he can, but the question remains, will the truth ever truly set Diana free? If you enjoyed this documentary, like the video and subscribe for more true celebrity stories